Well, folks, here we are. Where we are, how we are, I don't know. Nehemiah Gordon is at my house. This is Keith Johnson. I am upside down in the earth. I have to be honest, folks. I'm not
Wait,
sure.
You're in Australia?
No, it's worse than that. I mean, but listen, you're at my house, and you've sent me a couple pictures, and I'm not happy. You're using my cups. You're sitting at my desk. What's going on? I invite you to have one room, and you've taken over the entire house. I'm a little concerned.
So you said make yourself at home.
Yeah, I said make myself at home. I didn't say make it your home, Nehemiah. I'm really had it with these pictures, but people may know, it'll all make sense real soon. Nehemiah is in my house, and as I mentioned, I'm upside down in the earth, trying to get some things worked out. In fact, I'm working on something really exciting, but here's the issue, Nehemiah. As you know, my computer has crashed.
Literally, it crashed, right?
Literally,
it literally crashed to the ground and broke.
Crashed. Yeah, it's a long story.
Wait, so how are you speaking to us?
So right now I'm speaking to you from my iPad. It's really interesting where I'm at. It's a cat and mouse game. How I have to go in and out in terms of trying to get connected. As you know, it's been a challenge for us, but it's such an important update. We decided that we would do this together to take a time to give people an update to kind of what's happening, not only with the Iron Dome tour, but really what's happening in terms of time. And I really want to get into this, Nehemiah. You sent out an email, and I want you to give us a background on why you sent the title of your email.
Yeah.
I got the email over here, and I'm thinking, well, what's the confusion? And so could you just let people know right now why you sent the email that way and what you're trying to communicate?
Okay, well, this Thursday night is the new moon sighting in Israel, September 25th at sunset on Thursday night. And we have this situation where we're not sure if the moon is going to be visible or not. And I guess you could say that every month, that we're not sure the moon will be visible or not. But here it's a little bit of a different situation. In most months I could say if there are no clouds, the moon will definitely be visible. Or even if it's perfect skies, the moon will definitely not be visible. Those are, for most months, I can tell you one of those two predictions. I obviously don't know if they're going to be clouds. Nobody knows that except for the creator of the universe. But in this month, Thursday night, we have 38 minutes of lag time. That means from the time of sunset to moonset, there's 38 minutes, which is a very short window. And it's only 1.86% illumination of the moon from the perspective of the Earth. And what all that means is that we're just not sure if the moon will be visible or not. It's just uncertain. It might be visible, but it might not.
I hate to do this, Nehemiah. I have a lot of people that are listening who had no idea why it even matters and what you're talking about with the moon. Okay. What's this Thursday? What's the big deal?
All right. So if you open up to Leviticus 23 and Numbers, I believe 29, you have a festival which is called Yom Teruah, or some people translate it as the Day of Trumpets. I'd translate it as the Day of Shouting. It's the first day of the 7th month, and it begins with the sighting of the 7th new moon in the Hebrew calendar.
Okay, now when you say new moon, when I look in my newspaper, it says new moon. And it's my understanding when I look in the newspaper and it says new moon, that's a different definition than new moon biblically.
Right. This is the Hebrew biblical definition of new moon. The new moon in your newspaper is what's called astronomical new moon. And you might say, well, aren't they the same thing? And they're not. Astronomical new moon is a relatively recent term. If you look historically, the way the term new moon was used in Hebrew sources and even in other sources, in most languages, up until about, I don't know, maybe about 100 years ago, or whenever the change was made, new moon took on this new meaning, which was what's also called conjunction. But the new moon we're talking about is the first visible sliver of the new moon. The first crescent.
That beautiful thing you see once a month. If you catch it, you look up in the sky and there's this wonderful little beautiful. Yeah. So let me ask a question, Nehemiah. So a lot of people, as I mentioned, are listening to this and they're saying, okay, so you guys keep talking about the new moon missions, etc. So this festival called Yom Teruah, is that the same as Rosh Hashanah? Because there's a real big deal with Rosh Hashanah.
So Let me first explain. So this festival, Yom Teruah, begins with the sighting of the new moon. And in ancient Jewish sources, you'll see, for example, they speak about, such and such a person saw the new moon. So it was clearly something that's visible. And there's really no question. No one disputes it. It's the crescent. And here's where it gets a little bit interesting. So rabbinical Jews, Pharisees, they continued to follow the new moon sighting even
Hmm.
after the temple was destroyed, up until around the year 359 AD. And
Okay, so
then,
that's after the time of Yeshua, 2,000 years ago, 359
right,
AD.
so about
So the
330
temple was
years after
destroyed
the
in
time of
70,
Jesus.
70, 60, around the 669, 70. And you're telling me that they were still citing this new moon that's coming Thursday? They were citing it.
Every month they would cite it, and they would have witnesses they would testify, and then they would burn bonfires on the hilltops to send the message forth. And a certain period, the Romans would not allow them to burn the bonfires,
uh,
so they would send out messengers. And there's a really
okay,
cool reference where it talks about how they sent messengers with like coded messages that,
yes.
if they were caught, then they may not have even known what the message was, but the people receiving it knew.
Hmm.
And so the Romans maybe tortured them, and they couldn't give up the secret. Oh, these are new moon witnesses. It's pretty interesting stuff.
But
Anyway,
let me ask this question before you go forward. So
yeah.
the Romans didn't want the Jews to cite the new moon because then they would be according to God's calendar, according to the biblical
Well,
understanding what time it
they
was.
wanted them to follow the Roman calendar.
Exactly. Isn't that kind of interesting, Nehemiah,
Yeah.
that they stopped at 359 and now so many people that are listening, a lot of people that are listening, have been completely, if I can say, they put their lives in sync with the calendar that's not the biblical calendar. One of the things that you've done over the years that's been very, very helpful, powerful, wonderful is that you've been committed to helping people understand, at least so they can count, knowing when the beginning of the biblical month is by sighting of the new moon. And then, of course, by having this information, people can open their scripture, they can read it and say, oh, so when God says the seventh month you shall have this festival, how do you know when it is? It's not based on looking at a calendar on earth. We look at the calendar in heaven, and that lets us know what time it is on earth. So that's why I wanted to
Right.
kind of get around why this
Well,
is so important this Thursday, the Thursday night that's coming up.
so what happened in 359 is that the Romans abolished the Sanhedrin, which was this council of rabbis, 70 rabbis, who would essentially announce that the new moon had been sighted. And the leader of that Sanhedrin, his name was Hillel II.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a very famous figure in Jewish history, Hillel, who said some of the similar things that Yeshua said. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he taught the Golden Rule 30 years before Yeshua was born. He was an interesting figure. That's not him. This is a
Mm-hmm.
different guy. This was actually a descendant of his. 300 and nearly 400 years later, Hillel
Mm-hmm.
II, who 359, he established this calculated calendar using the most advanced cutting-edge science of the time,
Mm-hmm.
which is about 1,000 years outdated now. So anyway, so the best they could do with the science of the time was to calculate the dark moon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's interesting because they have the festival, they call it Rosh Hashanah, and we'll get to that in a minute why it's called that. But their Rosh Hashanah was basically in place of Yom Teruah,
Mm-hmm.
and or in addition, they also call it Yom Teruah. They also call it Day of Shouting or Day of Trumpets, but it's
Mm-hmm.
more commonly known in rabbinical circles as Rosh Hashanah. And
Mm-hmm.
Rosh Hashanah was always 2 days long. Now, why
Mm-hmm.
2 days? Because back in the time before Hillel II, when they would sight the new moon, the witnesses weren't always able to come and testify that they
Mm-hmm.
saw the moon
Mm-hmm.
until sometimes it took 48 hours. So they said we'll just keep both,
Mm-hmm.
and they did that consistently every year, and to this very day, rabbinical Orthodox Jews keep Rosh Hashanah for 2 days. So,
Yeah.
for example, I have some friends in Israel who are Orthodox Jews, and they will be observing in Israel 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. Um, Now,
Wait,
both of those days are counted from the dark moon. So, in
wait, wait,
this
wait,
instance,
Nehemiah, if you've got
yeah.
friends that are in Israel, aren't these also people that would help us in citing the beginning of the seventh month? So how is that going to work?
Well, hold on,
I
let's
mean,
get to that. So, they start their festival Wednesday night. Like, for
mm-hmm.
example, my mother, who's an Orthodox Jew to this very day, and three of my sisters who live in Israel, they're going to be observing from Wednesday night at sunset all the way till Thursday night at sunset is the first day, and then Friday night at sunset is the second day. So it's obviously 48
Wow.
hours, sunset to
Okay.
sunset. Actually, probably more like 50 because they add a little bit at the end. Um, and then after that, they have Saturday, which is Shabbat. So think about that. They have a triple day of rest in a row. They have 3 days in a row where they can't work, they can't buy and sell, they can't go buy milk. Um, 3 days in a row, according to their system. Now, here's where it gets a little bit of complicated. So no one really disputes that in ancient times before Hillel II, and I say no one in Judaism. I don't mean in other
Mm-hmm.
groups who have all kinds of interesting theories and.
Yeah.
But in the Jewish world, nobody disputes that that the month originally began with the sighting of the new moon, and in the end, when the Sanhedrin is reestablished and the Messiah comes, I'm not sure the Sanhedrin will be reestablished, but this is what the rabbis say, that we'll go back to sighting the new moon. So really, the question is between now and when the Messiah comes, or when the Sanhedrin's reestablished, what do we do? And rabbinical Jews say, look, Hillel II established it. It may have been Roman persecution. So what? We don't have the authority to change what he established for whatever reason he established it. That's tradition. And I say, why not do what was done biblically in the time of King David and the time of Ezra and Nehemiah and Moses? Why would we do anything different? Just because the Romans came and forced us to do something a certain way. Well, the Romans are gone. I mean, they don't exist, and we're still here. So they'll be observing it Wednesday night. There's no question. If you look at any Jewish calendar, it's not a question about when this festival is.
And just to be clear, Nehemiah, Wednesday night, there won't be a new moon.
No, there will not be a new moon.
It's impossible for there to be a new moon on Wednesday night.
Right. It's absolutely impossible. And it's not even certain if there'll be a new moon Thursday night in Israel.
Okay, now here comes the rub. So basically,
there'll definitely be a new moon Friday night. No question about that.
The first possibility for a new moon is Thursday night. And so now the whole issue about why we're deciding when, whether that will be cited or not cited. Why do we want to know that? Because we want to know when we can acknowledge, celebrate, honor.
I want to know when God's time is for this festival, not Hillel II's time.
Amen. That's a long way around it, Nehemiah, but I appreciate you taking the time to explain it, because this is a big deal. Thursday night. Now for the real issue.
Yeah.
You're in Charlotte. I'm upside down in the earth. Who do we have in Israel that's going to be citing the beginning of the seventh month? Do we have people there?
Oh, we definitely have people in Israel, and we have two types of observers.
Okay.
We've got observers who are actually, based on the observation, they will celebrate the festival.
Okay. So in other words, when they see it,
that's it. That's the festival.
The party's on. Okay, got it.
That's it. Yeah. Then there's another type of observer who are Orthodox Jews, and their position is, well, we're not going to actually observe the festival based on the sighting because we've got tradition. But when the Sanhedrin's reestablished, we want to have this experience and knowledge of how to sight the new moon. And so they're actually doing it more from the perspective of science and and maybe in some respects you might say well, I don't want to speak for them. You can go look on their website. For example, the Israeli New Moon Society is maybe the most well-known of the organizations. And they explain what their purposes are. But as I understand it, and I really shouldn't speak for them, but as I understand it, they're doing it so that when the Sanhedrin is reestablished, they'll be able to hand that information over to the Sanhedrin and say, look, we have these 2,000 observations. This is when it was seen. This is when it was not seen. And then the Sanhedrin will know and be able to use that information to interrogate the witnesses. So if a witness would come, let's say the Sanhedrin existed today, and a witness came and said, I saw the new moon Wednesday night. The Sanhedrin would immediately, off the bat, say, you're a liar. We know you're lying. How do you know he's lying? Because we've been carrying out new moon observations for the last 30 years, and we know under a Wednesday night that visibility is impossible.
Right.
So that's why the Orthodox Jews, as I understand it, are amassing this information. And I have utmost respect for what they're doing. I don't want to ridicule them for observing the festival on Wednesday night. And I want to acknowledge that they've actually amassed a great deal of scientific knowledge of when the new moon is visible. That's been very helpful for us. So here's where it gets a little complicated. The Orthodox Jews who will sight the moon Thursday night, they can't tell us if they saw it or not until Saturday night.
And the reason they can't tell us?
So in rabbinical Orthodox Judaism, you can't use a telephone or a computer on a holiday. So that means, let's say you're, my mother, for example, she can't use her telephone or her computer from sunset Wednesday night till sunset Saturday night for 72 hours. And technically it's more like 74 hours, but whatever. So for 72 hours, she can't use a telephone. She can't use a computer. She can't use a car. So this is why the Arabs attacked on Yom Kippur in the Yom Kippur War in 1973. They knew that the Orthodox Jews wouldn't lift up the telephone Even if you lifted up the telephone and called the tank commander and said, you need to show up for the, we're under attack, he won't lift up the phone and answer it.
Right.
So that's what the Arabs were reckoning on. What they didn't take into account is that the air raid sirens were,
right.
Went off, and so they did come to the tanks anyway. But I know an example of one particular person who it was the Yom Kippur holiday, and his mother answered the phone, and he was actually in tanks. I know this person personally, and his mother decided, I'm not going to tell him that we got this phone call until after the holiday.
Okay.
So he showed up. He showed up probably 12 to 18 hours later than he should have for the war. And he's probably alive because of it, because his entire unit was wiped out.
Wow. So
anyway,
let me be clear, though.
Yeah.
So now the people that are there that would be sighting the moon on Thursday night will go out and sight, and maybe they saw it, but they're not going to be able to communicate. They're not going to get on the internet. They're not going to make phone calls.
So the point is, some of the observers will communicate to us, and some won't. Mm-hmm. And here's the problem. It's very difficult to prove a negative. It's really easy to prove a positive. If we have two people who sight the moon, let's say our friend Yoel sights the moon, and then somebody in Jerusalem, we've got a bunch of people in Jerusalem who are sighting the moon. We have people in other places too. So if we have two witnesses who say we saw the moon, and they're reliable witnesses, that's an important point, then it's no problem. We know it's Thursday night. But what if all of our observers, and there aren't that many observers, let's say it's 20 or 30. Let's say we've got 30 people who say we didn't sight the moon. But then Saturday night we found out maybe 10 people sighted the moon, just in different places. Israel's not a big country, but I mean, we literally had a situation where we had a bunch of people sighting the new moon from the wall of the old city of Jerusalem, and maybe a mile and a half away there was a bunch of people sighting it from Mount of Olives. And the people in the Mount of Olives saw the moon and we didn't. And the reason they saw the moon is the Mount of Olives is actually higher than the location where we were. The Mount of Olives is higher than ancient Jerusalem, surprisingly. So, and that's probably the reason they saw it. So look, I mean, they were a couple miles apart, and one group saw it and one didn't. So we could have 20 or 30 observers who report in, and I don't know what the exact number is. So let's say it's 20 or 30. Depends who shows up. That's part of the issue. We could have all those people say they didn't cite it, and then we find out, two people did cite it Thursday night. That could happen. And so here's where I want to be really careful and really, it could be really easy to say, it wasn't cited, and so it's Friday night. And look, some people, and so here's my point. So if it's not cited Thursday night, then by default it's the following night, which is Friday night. Okay. Right. But then Saturday night we might find out, well, that's it was Friday night based on the information you had, but it was cited, and so now it's Thursday night.
So now for those,
you can't re-celebrate the holiday, and this is why the rabbinical Jews in ancient times, and even in modern times, celebrated 2 days. Okay. And if somebody wanted to say, okay, I'm going to celebrate both days, like I've got a friend in China, and he sent me an email, and he said, Nehemiah, I'm going to blow my shofar Thursday night and take Friday off of work. And I understand where he's coming from. By the time we announce that the moon was or was not sighted, let's say it is sighted, he won't know until 3 or 4 in the morning, China time. Maybe later than that, if there's certain delays and things like that. So his point is, look, the holiday will be half over. I'm going to celebrate. I'm going to keep both days. And then for Yom Kippur, obviously for Yom Kippur you can't keep 2 days in a row. So for Yom Kippur, then I'll adjust based on what I find out was really cited Thursday night. And that's
Here's what I want to do. Here's what I want to do, Nehemiah. It's amazing. People are listening. Thousands of people will listen to this, and you're like, what are they talking about? What's really nice about understanding is if you can both understand it, hear it, see it, feel it, touch it, experience it. So here's what we're going to do based on what you just said. This weekend, I'm going to ask our folks to put back up the 9th episode where you and I went out and looked for both the barley and the moon. In the 9th episode of Time Will Tell. We're going to put that up this weekend for everybody in preparation for Yom Kippur that's coming the next weekend, one of those days. And the reason for this is because I really want people to understand this. Isn't it interesting? The only holiday that's actually celebrated on the new moon is this particular Yom Teruah, which I think is pretty amazing. People around the world are going to be celebrating Rosh Hashanah. Some people around the world are going to be looking for Yom Teruah. Some folks are going to say we're going to do it based on calculations. Others are going to wait until they see it. I said it during our Iron Dome tour special report. When Yeshua said, "No one knows the day or the hour." I mean, I just think it's amazing that this holiday, this holy time, is one of those that nobody knows. You don't know, I don't know, NASA doesn't know, and so it's going to be kind of exciting. I mean, we really don't know, and I'm upside down in the earth, and so I'm not sure how I'm going to do this. You're definitely, I'll hear from you as far as when it is. But Nehemiah, this also leads toward the fact that we're going to be going on tour together,
Yeah.
and we get to also share some of this information with people on tour. Now, let's just update everyone on how they can get the information about where we're going to be. 5 cities in 10 days during the week of Sukkot. Can you give them a little bit of guidance on how they can find out where we're going to be?
Yeah. So first of all, they can go to my website, nehemiahswall.com,
Mm-hmm.
Nehemias wall,
Mm-hmm.
nehemiahswall.com, and hopefully you'll have the link on the page there. Or they can go to your website, and like I said, if they're listening to this, hopefully there'll be a link from the audio.
Yeah. BFAinternational.com,
Right.
NehemiahSwall.com.
Okay,
Both of them
and
have
then
the
both
Iron
of the
Dome tour.
websites, yeah, there's a explanation of the Iron Dome tour, when it is, where it is, October 10th to 19th.
Mm-hmm.
It's over Sukkot. We're actually, it's really a great story. I love this. You want to tell the story how we ended up doing 5 cities in a period of
Well,
10 days?
I would like to
And let
tell.
me just tell the people, we're going to be in Iowa, we're going to be in
Mhm.
Colorado in 2 places, we're going to be in Oregon, and we're going to be in Southern California. So
Yeah,
4 states, two locations in California, so 5 cities. And
yeah.
I don't know if the word city is appropriate because in Canyon City, Colorado, it's actually called the city, but it's like somewhere out in the mountains. I mean, I don't know. So
Yeah.
we're doing 5 cities in 4 states in a period of 10 days. So how did that happen, Keith?
Yeah, well, let's back up. I mean, basically, you and I were doing research on. There's a long project. I won't get into it right now, but I really wanted to go to the 5 cities, the Philistine cities where the ark was taken, and you came to town on another matter, and I said, Nehemiah, well, could we find this? Could we find this place, Ekron? And he's like, well, we have to. You put me on one of those wild goose chases, and we ended up in ancient Ekron. We were over our shoulder. We had the fighter jets, and we had just seen the Iron Dome actual up close and personal. Everyone's heard about that.
Yeah.
And from there, it was determined that we were going to take the information that we had learned from the Iron Dome and share it with the public. But let me say something before I get to this, and people need to know this. We actually took a time for prayer. This wasn't something we just said, oh, what a great marketing idea. We actually battled in prayer over this issue of whether we would whether we would go out together, because we know there are all sorts of issues that people struggle with. There are issues that are being information that people are getting that's if I can say this, kind of like those missiles where they're being attacked and hurt. And I feel like the information that we do have that's biblically based can help shoot down a lot of that. But it was you that said, what if there was an Iron Dome tour?
Can I tell
We
people what
said,
the Iron Dome is? Can I interrupt you?
yeah, well, you think people don't know what
I'm
the
not
Iron
sure
Dome is?
everybody knows what the Iron Dome is. So Israel just had a war with Gaza, and Hamas and Gaza, they make these rockets, and they cost something somewhere in the order of between $50 and $500 for a rocket. It's made in a garage. It's usually made from irrigation pipes,
Mm-hmm.
and they just lob them at Israel, and they'll fire. And one of them is really difficult to aim, but if you fire 10 at a time, you're bound to hit something. And they've been doing this for years. People heard about it
Mm-hmm.
recently in the news, but there's been nonstop, continuous. Even now that we're at in a quote unquote permanent ceasefire, there's still been rockets. Go look it up.
Sure, there has. Sure, there has.
There's no ceasefire. That's a lie. That's what they tell the UN.
Mm-hmm.
But look in the news. There's rockets. They continue even now. So the problem with the rockets is Israel, had this weapon system, the Patriot missiles, which they got from the U.S. and they developed it into the Arrow, and the Arrow was okay at shooting down a long range missile, but these little kind of harassment missiles, they were too short range. Sometimes they'd be in the air for 15 seconds and then they'd kill somebody. So
Mm-hmm.
Israel developed a system, and when they made it, they said it's got to be inexpensive. Now, what's inexpensive for an army? Each rocket the Iron Dome shoots costs $50,000. But that's really cheap. The Patriot and Arrow system costs like over $1 million per rocket. So Israel has this system, and it's really, really easy to just lob out these Qassam rockets and these other rockets that Hamas has. It's just really easy for them. they make them for $50 and they shoot 10 of them, and maybe they kill somebody, maybe they don't. But to knock those down is a lot more difficult. It's a lot more challenging. I mean, it's the cutting edge technology in the world that Israel uses to knock down those rockets. And so why did we calling this the Iron Dome tour? Because the way I see it is there's people out there who are, sitting behind their computers in their underwear and just lobbing out these rockets at God's people. They're just like, fire. And it's real easy to do that. Take little sniper shots and shoot off these rockets and undermine people's faith by going in the tunnels. And what I want to do is empower the people to bring the Iron Dome and empower the people so they don't have to, be damaged by these spiritual Qassams that the Torah terrorists are firing at them.
And I think that's what's exciting about this. Now, I will say this for those that are listening. I'm in a bit of a touchy situation right now. I would just ask for prayer in terms of where I am and needing to get back.
But are you
back
saying
to my house
there's a chance you won't come on the Iron Dome tour?
No, what I'm saying is right now I'm in a very tenuous situation, upside down in the earth, while you're at my house and I'm here, and there are some issues that I need prayer on to be able to get back so that we can do that. But let me say this. What I do want to do is this, Nehemiah. I thought it was phenomenal when you invited us to bring the camera along to understand biblical time. We're going to make that episode available right away this weekend. When they listen to this, they can go to bfainternational.com. They can watch Biblical Time, episode 9 with you and I. Actually, we went to Gaza. We went to the Gaza border. In that
and that's
series.
Where was that like a few years ago when we were sighting the new moon?
Sighting the new moon. And then
so if people want to understand this whole Yom Teruah thing, you must watch that episode. That's episode 9.
First they got to watch episode 9, and then they get to watch the Yom Teruah actual,
which is
Egyptian,
episode 10. I don't know.
No. That's right on time. Both episodes are going to be available, and I want to tell people.
And it's called Right on Time, not Time Will Tell?
Yeah, well, listen now. First, episode 9, Biblical Time, and then the episode that we just made available last week. Hundreds of people, thousands have watched it already, available for people to watch for free. That's where we go and actually cite a 7th month new moon. And then
so you'll
next
include
week,
that link?
Absolutely. Both of those are going to be available. And then in preparation, that's for the Yom Kippur special, which you have not seen. I have not seen.
I haven't even seen it.
No, because it's not ready yet. It'll be ready.
I was there when it was recorded, so.
Yeah. So, but let me just say this to everybody. What I really do appreciate about the process that we've been in, Nehemiah, the heritage that I come from, oftentimes we look at things like Rosh Hashanah, Yom Teruah, Leviticus 23. Those things aren't applicable. But as I have been able to take a fresh approach to Scripture and to find out that God's time still is in effect today, why couldn't we help people understand that? And you've been awesome as far as being willing to share the information. I've had my little camera. I think the production of this stuff has been really amazing. It's been on TV. People have loved it. It's going to give people a chance to see from the land of Israel, both the first month and also the 7th month. And then that actually helps us to count down to what I call the miracle of Yom Kippur. So those things are going to be available. Nehemiah, now you're at my house. We're going to make this link available. We're going to send this out to people. Again, they can just click it. Free registered member. Watch it as many times as you want. Share it with family and friends in preparation for Yom Kippur. We appreciate the fact that you are in contact with people in Israel that are going to be citing the new moon. Now, I have a very important question, and this is probably another subject, but I'm just going to ask it, and you got to answer this in less than.
Before you ask that, I just want to give a quick rundown of 5 events we're doing. We're going to be in Boone, Iowa, October 10th to 11th. Mm-hmm. Then from there we go, and all of this is on both websites, nehemiaswall.com and bfainternational.com. Second place is going to be a place called Evans, Colorado. I believe that's north of Denver. We're going to be there October 12th. That's a one-night event. Then we're going to be in Canyon City, Colorado for 2 days speaking, October 13th to 14th. That's the one up in the mountains. Then the fourth one is going to be the huge event every year at Canby, Oregon. We're really excited about that. That's the One Nation Northwest Sukkot. And last but not least, and maybe most, is the Hesperia, California, which is a couple hours east of LA, if I'm not mistaken, October 17th to 19th. I looked at the schedule of when they have us speaking, and I'm like, what? They have us speaking like between the two of us for like 12 hours. So this is going to be like I've been hiding in my cave in China for the last year, and it's all going to come out. I'm excited. If you want to stay,
let me say this. So that's awesome. people can get the information about that. And what I do love about what we're doing, and we are in prayer about a couple other things. Won't make any announcement now because I'm stuck upside down in the earth. But hopefully, if everything goes according to plan, we will be able to let people know how we're going to continue in the spirit of the Iron Dome tour, giving people biblical information that can inspire them, help them, bless them, keep them grounded. I want to ask a question,
Yes,
Nehemiah, and we can't go long, but I got to ask you this question. So, I've got a friend who's in the Dominican Republic. I've got another friend. This international thing is amazing. I'm in an international place right now, around the world, people around the world that are getting this information, new information, and they're saying, well, look, I looked up in the sky and I saw the first sliver of the new moon. It was on Thursday night. That is officially the time. What is your answer to the people that say it doesn't matter what happens in Israel, this is what's happening in Texas? I mean, Texas is big. Maybe it shows up in Texas. So what would be your response to people that say, I've got it enough to know to look and see it. I see it. I'm in Texas. Yom Teruah. What's your response?
So to me, the way I look at that is that historically, when it was observed, it was always from Israel, and the word would go out from Israel. And so we have this description of, the bonfires, for example, the signal fires, to be more accurate. The signal fires, the first one was on Har HaMishcha, the Mount of Anointing, or next to the Mount of Olives. And then from there it would go to Sartaba, and then from there, to Agrippina. And we actually know the names of the mountains. That's what's cool about it. Like, this isn't.
And we were on the mountains, Nehemiah.
We were on the mountains. No, but my point is, this isn't some kind of sometimes you read these, rabbinical texts and, other ancient sort of texts, and you're like, it's describing, the mythical river that shoots out rocks, and you're like, wow, there's no such place. These are actual mountains I've been to, and that anybody could go to, and they're actually, and you go to them and you see, wow, you would be able to see a signal fire from that mountain to that mountain. It's incredible.
Yes, it's a beautiful.
And so the point is that it would be announced in Israel, and it would go forth in Israel into the diaspora, and anybody who was beyond that signal of the diaspora would keep 2 days because they didn't know which day it was. And so that's what was done historically, up until the time of Hill II. Now, today, should we go up to Mount Wilson in near Los Angeles, and which has this observatory, and sight it from there, and it just doesn't make sense to me that if this is what they did in ancient times, that we're going to somehow do it different. That's not how David would have done it, and then I have to ask myself the question: what about the people in St. Petersburg, Russia, where sunset is like at 3 a.m. or something ridiculous like that? And what about the people in places that are covered with mist perpetually? And my point is, in both those kind of environments, you would never see the new moon. You might not see it for many days. I mean, whereas in Israel, we have an environment which is really it's designed for the new moon. It really is. So, awesome. so to me, everything focuses on the place where Yehovah put his name, and the place where he put his name is the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, and the land of Israel, and that's where it should go.
An amazing segue because what's coming for Yom Teruah is I think it's amazing that people, first of all, are going to be looking for this sign in the heavens that will let us know what time it is on the earth, and then of course Yom Kippur. Again, we're going to make available, when they listen to this, they can go to bfninternational.com. They can go right on the front page, and you'll see right on time. There's a little picture there for where we're citing the 7th month. They can then watch Biblical Time, which gives the entire basis, Nehemiah. Both from, actually, Dr. Roy Hoffman is in that episode also, who's sharing about what process they go through in terms of knowing about the new moon, and then of course you took us into the field.
And he's actually an Orthodox Jewish scientist who was one of the founders of the Israeli New Moon Society.
Yeah, so this is all information that people, it's gold in what we have, and again, it was well received all over the world. We're going to make it available this weekend. Again, those are those 2 episodes, and then again, Yom Kippur coming. Be in prayer for me. I got to get my house back. Nehemiah has run roughshod over that place. I need to do some things. Need to happen in the next few days. Actually, let me just say this. In all seriousness, by Yom Teruah, potentially, I will know whether I will be able to get away from where I am at right now. So people really appreciate your prayers. Nehemiah, I'm very excited about us being able to bring this information that's been really sitting in the archives for 2 years now. It really, I think, is going to help people understand this. I really appreciate the work that you've done. we're going to try to get this up and available based on the technology that we have, and it'll be good to get on the road to see people face to face. Friends, if you can, come and visit us. Also, we're going to have this information available again online. But the Iron Dome tour is going to be amazing. We're bringing new information, but it's all biblical. Amen.
Amen.
This is Keith Johnson, Upside Down. Nehemiah Gordon, where are you again?
I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, at Keith's house,
Remember those words.
and I'm wearing his sleeves.
Hey, folks, thanks for listening. We are looking forward to everything that's coming during this very powerful month. Amen.
Amen. Shalom.